Welcome to the podcast. I'm
Yeah,
Jeremy,
I'm Andy.
and today we are going to be talking about another new movie.
We're
What a
excited.
great month this has been just for
We've
movies that we are excited about seeing
we've seen
and
them, and we're
and
talking about them.
and excited to talk about.
Yeah,
So this week we are talking about Furiosa, a
yeah,
Mad Max saga, the much anticipated by us prequel to
yeah,
Mad Max Fury Road.
yeah.
And this is, of course, is once again written and directed by George Miller, who has been
He just loves this world
he's
so much.
yes, been the man behind this Mad Max
For
universe
40 years now.
that he created and was really what broke him into the film
Yeah,
industry. Originally, of course, made in Australia, where he's from, with Mel Gibson. It made Mel Gibson's career. It
yeah.
made George
It's
Miller's
they're
career.
really important movies, actually.
And then what really shocks me is looking at George Miller's IMDb. That's fine.
A little background noise. I can go shut that real quick if I
It's
need to.
It'll be if it happens again, maybe, but I'm
Okay.
not worried about it. George Miller's IMDb. He has not directed a lot,
No.
considering how long he's been working. I was kind of shocked looking at it, going like,
Let's just ask the question right now. Is this the strangest IMDb of all time?
it might be
It's got to be a contender.
for sure because I mean, like literally half of his movies
Yeah.
are
Are
Mad
Mad
Max
Max.
movies.
But then the ones that aren't are like such a far, it's not like he did Mad Max and then he did like this other like dystopian action movie. No. He veered far away from Mad Max.
Yeah, so he did Mad Max and then Mad Max 2: The Road Warrior,
Yeah.
which
It's essentially just Mad Max over again. Like
it is the one that I have the most connection to from the original trilogy.
yeah.
And I think the
Probably
best
same.
of
I think
those
so,
three.
yeah.
Uh, he did the Twilight Zone movie,
Well,
which I've not seen.
I
I was
have
never a
seen that.
Twilight Zone
yeah,
guy.
it's fine.
Then he does Beyond Thunderdome. So there you go. 3 out of his first 4 are the
Mad
Mad Max
Max.
trilogy. And then he does the Witches of Eastwick
Yeah.
and Lorenzo's Oil.
One of your favorites, I know.
Like you're saying, just a random.
It's so
So-
random.
So here's the thing. Well, I should have done it by decade because he did those 3 Mad Max movies and
Which is
of Eastwick all in the 80s.
80s.
In the 90s, he does 3 things.
Yeah.
3 things the entire 90s.
Yeah.
He does Lorenzo's Oil, 1 episode of a TV show called Century of Cinema,
Yeah.
and then Babe, Pig in the City.
It makes no sense.
None.
None.
Yeah.
But I remember those Babe movies. They got like acclaim. I'm pretty sure one of them got nominated for Best Picture. And I'm
Yeah.
not being sarcastic.
I know. You're right. I'm pretty sure it was the first one.
Yeah.
And I'm forgetting the actor's name who plays the farmer on it. I'm
James
pretty sure,
Cromwell.
yes, was nominated for Best Actor or Supporting Actor or something.
Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it is wild. But I mean, even as successful as Babe was, to go like George Miller directing the Babe sequel.
I know.
Is
He didn't direct the first one.
Right.
He jumped in on the second one. It's
So
wild. It's
Yes.
wild.
And so you're like, well, surely that will be his one weird, obscure
No, it
journey
somehow
into...
manages to get weirder.
Yeah, so that was in 98. He doesn't direct again until 2006 when he does Happy
Happy
Feet.
Feet.
And then he doesn't direct again until 2011 when he does Happy Feet, 2.
2.
And you're like, okay, maybe this is just who George Miller is now. He does Babe, Pig in the City, and the Happy
Happy
Feet
Feet.
movies. But then he returns in 2015 with Mad Max Fury Road.
It's crazy. I really should have done more research and see if there's any information out there as like if he's ever talked about what his thought process was. I don't know. I didn't research it like I should have.
Yeah, I know. Part of me like really wants to know, and then part of me kind of just loves him being this bizarre mystery guy.
It's crazy. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, and then you could literally just round out his career. So that's again, he does not work a lot.
No.
For a director whose name is like known,
Yeah.
and I think that's what's so mind blowing is like for someone whose name has been known for so many decades,
Mhm.
you expect like a much more prolific IMDb, but it's like 2 movies a decade almost, 2 to 3 movies a
Definitely
decade.
goes years without doing well, or he's doing these Mad
Yeah.
Max movies 4 years at a time.
Yeah. He did 3,000 Years of Longing in 2022, and then Furiosa this year. One thing that definitely jumps out to me is I have not seen pretty much any of his non-Mad Max movies.
Right?
And I'm sitting there going like, that can't be right.
I-
Like,
I've
surely I've
probably-
seen George Miller movies. And
I've probably seen Happy Feet 1 or 2 or both when my kids were younger, but yeah, it's wild.
so weird. But I love I love how much he cares about this Mad Max world that
I do
he's
too.
created. I love that he keeps returning to it. I love that nobody else
It's
is
trying to
like
take it
is
from
taking
him.
over. Yeah, because
It is his.
yes,
Uh-huh.
and you feel that like we talk about all the time. Passion project a lot of times is like a negative association with
Right.
something, but with him, it actually works in these Mad Max movies.
Yeah.
That it's his baby, it's his
It
passion
is.
thing because it, it's just a unique blend of everything that is, and we'll talk a little bit about like why I love these and the unique blend of things it is. But it's like it has to be just George Miller
Yeah.
is this type of guy. Like it takes a guy who does these post-apocalyptic crazy movies and happy
Babe
like
2.
a guy who has that differing sentiments
Mhm.
to create these weird mosaics that are these Mad Max
That's very
movies.
well put. Yeah.
So I just we talked about it when we did our most anticipated movies of the year
Yeah.
list. How many of the movies were based on the filmmaker? And like I hear Mad Max Fury Road prequel on Furiosa, I had a lot of reservations
Mhm.
from just the like description of that.
Sure.
But when it said George Miller's doing this, it's like
It
okay,
puts your mind at
then yeah,
ease.
it puts my mind at ease that I go like I'm in. I'm
Yeah.
okay because George Miller cares too much about this world to like do some watered down
Subpar.
just cash grab
Yeah.
because that one was successful, so I've got to make more. Like that's not what he would do.
Right.
So it put my mind at ease with
Yeah.
that. Um, I just want to also shout out. I said he wrote and directed it. He has a writing partner that's written with him on the past several things
Yeah.
he's done. Nick, I'm not gonna be able to pronounce his last name, Latharus or something.
Sure.
But I just want to shout out Nick because he contributed to this. So
Keeping the tradition going of us not being able to pronounce names.
exactly,
Yeah.
yeah. We just if we mispronounce everybody's name, nobody can get offended when we
Yeah.
mispronounce theirs. Like we're
Exactly.
equal
We
opportunity
are. We don't
mispronouncers.
discriminate.
All right, so I want to start as we talked about last time, giving just a brief description of what
Yes.
this movie is. So
Yeah.
which
What
will
is this
require
movie?
a brief description. So this movie uh, is very simple.
It is
It is
simple.
in the beginning. It's a post-apocalyptic world. This girl who lives in a place that actually is like growing
A
things
place of
and place of
abundance.
abundance. She gets kidnapped
Mhm.
by her gang, and
3 minutes into the movie.
essentially the rest of the movie is she has two goals. It's uh, revenge
Binge.
and escape.
Get home. Yep.
That's the whole
That is it.
point of the movies, and so it's her just kind of navigating this world of like captivity
Yeah.
and these three gangs that
Mhm.
run things.
Yep.
Um,
Kind of a battle over resources going on. But
exactly,
yeah.
yeah, and so um, that's one of my first notes is these movies get the right amount of minimalist story.
Yes.
Like people who are like, "There's no story in these worlds and in these Mad Max movies." I'm like, "Yeah, there's not a lot of story.
There's not, but
They
there's
give you what you
enough.
need.
They give you
They
exactly what you need and no more.
yeah." I love that like you talk about what's the elevator pitch for a movie, or people talk about that like give me the movie in
Give me
two
the two
sentences,
sentence. Yeah.
and it's like that's literally what you're going to get out of these Mad Max
Absolutely.
movies.
Yep.
And but what makes them work so well is you don't have a ton of story. There's not even a ton of character development,
No.
but there's just great world building in and again the way that we like that we talk about all the time where it's not exposition dumps world
No.
building. It's just I'm going to throw you in and kind of let you figure out as you're watching. Be like, okay, so what's going on here? Is
Yeah.
this guy's like a cult figure and he's got
That
all these
that's all you need. Yeah.
followers? Like I'm just going to figure that out and okay, like makes sense.
Yep. Don't need to know why really. We
Yeah.
don't get to know why really. We just what is presented to us is enough.
Yes. Exactly. Um, my next note is this movie, along with Fury Road, both movies are such a wild contrast to me of like how vibrant they look
Mm-hmm.
and like how dark the material actually is.
Yeah.
And sometimes like it's a little jarring and I forget like
Mhm.
because it's so vibrant and colorful.
Yeah.
Like it's really the word you could probably use is how colorful it is
Mhm.
that you almost think you're watching like a fun like family movie and then something like kind of disturbing happens and you're like, oh right, no, this is a dark
I thought that really
post-apocalyptic movie.
shined through in this one particularly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh, but in kind of like it's a great way because I think a lot of people who grew up in our era do. I still think in terms of like how would this movie translate to basic cable?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, this is a movie that would translate very well to basic cable
Yeah.
because like those moments of like darkness and violence are like you could take them out and the movie's not worse, but
Mm-hmm.
also they're not like unnecessary. Where I'm going, well, that was just for shock effect or
No, there's
something.
nothing real
It's
gratuitous in this
right.
movie at all. Yeah.
It's just kind of like honest to like what the world is that they've built.
Absolutely. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. Um, so let's, I mean, probably been obvious again. We always do this. We kind of talk around it, and in the way
Let's
we talk
just
around
spit
it,
it out. Yeah.
we get out. We kind of start to give those hints to what I loved this movie.
Same. It met every. So I had this listed as my most anticipated movie when we did
Hmm.
our podcast a few months ago, and it met every expectation.
That's so good to hear because
Yeah.
I went and saw it with two friends.
Mm-hmm.
One of them loves Fury Road.
Mm-hmm.
He says it's one of his favorite movies. One of them is like, yeah, I like it, but it's, and they both left kind of like, yeah, it was good, but
Mm-hmm.
like the one who loves Fury Road is like, it's not as good as Fury Road.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't even care to compare. Like I just left going like, I love that.
Yeah.
Like I'm not disappointed at all.
Mm-mm.
I don't. Maybe part of it is I wasn't expecting Fury Road.
Exactly. See, that worked as a positive for
Yeah.
me, where I felt like this one had more story and a little bit more. I don't want to say heart, but just maybe a little bit more emotion to it
Mhm.
because of her and her mom, I guess.
Yeah.
So it was like, Fury Road worked. Obviously, that was
Mm.
critically acclaimed. People love it. So I was glad that he stayed in the universe, but didn't just. It wasn't just Fury Road 2.0.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like, it's very obviously it's got a lot of similarities because it's very much in this Mad Max universe, but it wasn't just a rehash of Fury Road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as I was thinking through this, my big note, I say my big note, I've got several big notes, was this is how prequels should be done.
Yeah.
When I first heard it, they're gonna make a Furiosa prequel. I was like, that just doesn't seem necessary. And my
Mhm.
biggest concern was like, how are they going to have a story of Furiosa being this heroic figure, and then it makes sense in the Fury Road setting where she's kind of a hero hiding in plain sight.
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't anything she does in this prequel make her stand out and be too obvious as this hero hiding in plain
Yeah.
sight in Furiosa? But it does a great job of explaining that.
It does.
It builds on the world that you get in Fury Road, and yet it never feels like that's its purpose.
Right.
So that's the two things that prequels can do wrong. They can either kind of undo what you got in the original,
Mm-hmm.
or they can try to build up the original in a way that makes the prequel just service to that.
Yeah, that's all it exists for.
So, like,
Which is that's a better way of articulating what I'm always trying to say when it's like, I hate it when they go back and they get so wrapped up in showing you these clever little things like,
Mhm.
see, we did this because in the other movie they do this, and they're just so wrapped up in how clever they are.
right.
And this didn't get bogged down in all that stuff.
Yeah.
You learn why she has the contraption on her arm, but that wasn't like a wink, isn't this really smart? This is just like, well, here's how it happened.
Right.
Also an amazing scene in the movie.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So, as I said, my fear was like, how are you going to build up
They did a
Furiosa? How
great
she
job.
make hero? And it's like it's so simple and seems so obvious in hindsight, but bringing in Dementus as the villain.
Yep.
So Morton Joe, who's the big villain in Fury Road, is sort of a tertiary character in this one.
Yeah.
Like he's big and bad and lurking, but her I can't. Oh, I almost said a bad word.
You
Mixing
did.
my words there. Her focus, like I said,
Focus.
is twofold. It's revenge on Dementus and escape.
Yeah.
And so what happens is this movie ends up being about the revenge, and Fury Roads ends up being about the escape. And it's like, okay, that makes sense.
It makes sense.
Like, because originally my thought was Furiosa, how are we going to build this whole thing where her whole thing is escape?
Right.
Obviously, she can't do that in the first one, on the prequel, if it happens in Fury Road.
Right.
You give her a second goal, which is that revenge. And I'm like, okay, that's this movie.
And it has to happen in that order.
Right.
She has to get her revenge before she can get out of there.
Right.
So it's so smart.
Yeah.
So the lesson, like if you insist on doing a prequel, just like you said, put some actual thought into it, not just thought of, oh, this is so cool how we can show this by showing, like, put some real thought into your movie.
Yeah. And I'm not surprised to learn from reading the trivia that this movie essentially came from when they were making Fury Road, and they're doing like the sort of due diligence. Here's what we think your character's backstory is
Yeah.
with Charlize, and they're building it
So they
out.
just kind of made a
That
script out of
they
that, right?
essentially just build out a whole plot of a
Yeah.
movie, and then when they were done, they're like, we kind of want to make that movie now
And-
that we've built out this background, and you can see that it did flow that naturally.
Yeah. And that's probably the other big thing is like this was planned out. It wasn't just 10 years later, let's get a cash grab.
Mm-hmm.
This was thought out already. So that makes a huge difference, obviously.
Yeah. My next big note, Chris Hemsworth is incredible.
Yes, this is what I want to talk about so bad. He was so good in this movie. I literally had a grin on my face, I think, every second he was on screen. He was unbelievable. I mean, I'm not ready to say like, top 5 bad guys of all time or anything,
Right.
but I mean, talk about chewing the scenery in all the right ways.
Yes.
I mean, that was just I don't even know what, like, even that prosthetic nose.
Oh, the nose plays.
The nose.
to quote Ocean's 13,
yes,
the nose plays.
That was incredible. I loved his character. I loved his performance. Enormous shout out to Chris Hemsworth.
Yes. I wrote after that note, Chris Hemsworth is incredible. I said, Charlize Theron stole the show from Mad Max in Fury Road, and Chris Hemsworth stole the show from Anya Taylor-Joy in Furiosa. So the lesson learned is if George Miller calls you to be in a Mad Max movie, you ask,
bad guy.
What's the second lead?
Yeah. Or not the bad guy, but the second. Yeah.
Give me the second lead. Those
oh my gosh.
apparently are the parts that are the best.
And I just love it. Like, I love it when it shines through like how much fun the actor is having. And you see that, maybe like, I don't know what an example would be, like in this often with the villains, like maybe the Joker or something where you're just like, they know like, oh, this is the part to have in this movie.
Well, and I think particularly get it with guys who have been playing heroes for so long. And Hemsworth, I saw him say it in an interview. I've heard several people say this before. Like, it's actually kind of freeing playing the villain because with the villain, everything's on the table. But the hero, you've got to stay in
your moral code.
Exactly. Yeah. And you've got to like make sure you're doing things right. With the villain, you just get to be unhinged and be wild.
He is
free.
Unhinged. He is wild. He is free.
All of those things.
He is all those things.
I love the details with the character. I read again the teddy bear he carries around.
That was amazing.
Was originally just sort of like part of the prop design. They didn't really have any explanation for it, and then like they did with Furiosa, they were building out the character and talking about it, and they sort of built this backstory of he had a family and lost him, and it's part of why he's this just like.
But it was great too because they don't weigh the movie down with that stuff. It's mentioned, it's talked about a couple of times, but we don't have to do like the flashbacks or anything like that. And it's not used a lot of times in a movie. Like movies will do the thing where the bad guy is the bad guy, but actually he's kind of not because his family was no. Hemsworth's just the bad guy in this movie, despite the fact that his family was apparently killed and taken from him.
Absolutely, yeah. This movie. And you kind of alluded to it when you said like they don't spend too much time on that. It moves. This movie is 2.5 hours and it goes.
I wasn't kidding when I said probably 3 to 5 minutes into this movie, she's kidnapped.
Yeah.
I mean, just boom, instantly. And you get your first of many cool action sequences.
Yeah, because it's not, when she's kidnapped, it's like immediately the chase is on. And it's like instantly. 10 minutes long of chase.
That was incredible too. And not traditional chase.
Right.
Because I loved how it was like so Furiosa's mother chases after these guys, but it's not just like she doesn't just catch them instantly. It's taking place over the course of I guess you're led to believe like some days. I mean, definitely some days because you see night and stuff, but she never like it's not like the super cool hero move where she just pulls right up and grabs Furiosa. Like they get out ahead of her. She goes to snipe them and she realizes they're too far. And like it was really cool.
Yeah, really well done.
Really well done.
I thought they did George Miller just does a great job of making people look cool and characters look great in this movie.
Man, he does.
Did you recognize the actress who played Furiosa's mom?
No.
Because I spent the whole movie going like, I know her from something.
No.
And I couldn't put my finger on it. And then I realized afterwards she was in Anyone But You. She plays Glenn Powell's like ex-love interest in the movie. And like,
boy, talk about
yes.
Like,
but I was like, no wonder I couldn't place it because I'm sitting there going like, she has to have been in an action movie before.
Man, because she was so believable.
She just fit the part so well.
She was. I thought she did a great job for what limited what she had to do.
Yeah.
Man, that you just blew my mind.
Right.
Yeah. But that shows you that means she's probably a good actress.
Yeah.
Because she was convincing as like the ex and Anyone But You, and she was convincing as this warrior in this movie.
Yeah. It was a great like what is the word I'm looking for? Like just kind of guess a background for Furiosa.
Yeah. Without weighing you down and you're
Yeah.
like, I get it. I get everything I need to get just by seeing the mom in action.
Right.
Yeah. And same thing too. The movie starts, it's not like, now these people have found this land of abundance. You just see it. It's green. There's water. There's fruit. Okay, I get it. This movie, like you said, is not interested in spelling everything out for you. It just shows you, and then you, as an audience, just put the pieces together. Well done. But Hemsworth was just this is the performance I wanted from him.
Absolutely.
I saw the trailers and it was like, I like Hemsworth. I think he does great as Thor. Obviously he looks any action movie he's in, he's going to fit in.
Yeah.
I mean, he actually looks like Thor. But it's like I'm pretty sure this guy's a good actor.
Yeah. I love what he was doing with his voice too.
I was going to talk about
he's
that.
got a great hero's voice.
He does.
And he's using his original accent. He is Australian.
He is.
But he's a little like nasally or something, a little more like,
it's like
of a
he just
higher
wants to make it a little
voice.
grating or something. Yeah.
It almost sounds like it's like he's doing like old-timey carnival worker voice, especially when he's like on the microphone.
Yes,
it's like he's
Tom Hardy Bane situation. But I saw the preview several times because I've been to a lot of movies this year, and then it's like he's got his microphone. He's like, ready, set, go. And it was like, okay, right there, something in my brain clicked where it was just like, I think this has the potential to be just a great scene-chewing bad guy performance, and it was.
Absolutely. So I wanted to ask this question in regards to Hemsworth as we're thinking about like how great he was.
Mm-hmm.
Can you think of another example of an actor who had such a jump in level of his career and reputation that's already a good like 10 years into his career? Because you think of Hemsworth like, he had the Thor movies going. He did some other good movies like Rush, the racing movie.
Yep, that's a really good movie.
And the first Extraction movie. It's like he had a good career going, and people were like, "Yeah, he's good." But then, the past several years, it's like
it's gone up.
It's like everyone's still going like 10 years in. We're like, "Oh, I didn't know Hemsworth could do this," and he had this level to him. I honestly think it did flip with Thor Ragnarok. Because that was the first movie that really let him have a lot of personality.
Yes.
And not just be like, hey, you look the part.
Yeah.
But they let him be big personality. And then you get, a movie like this just shows it to another degree.
It does.
His range. And I'm like, I can't remember the last time somebody was so far into his career of being a star.
And you're like,
and then
man, this guy's even better than I thought, even though he's been right in front of me, front row and center in the Marvel movies for years. No, that's a great question. Nothing jumps out.
Man, yeah.
He is a talented guy, and his, we talk about it a lot on here. He's got that movie star charisma.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, like this to me, I don't want to say something and then regret it, but it's like this puts him up there in like the Gosling level. Yeah. Maybe not quite, but just someone that's like, man, this guy is so charismatic, so charming, but also such a good actor. And like I thought he got to show this, just like even though Gosling's of course the hero, Fall Guy, but just that like, man, just let me go, let me cook, let my charisma just burst off of the screen. And I thought Hemsworth was the same, even though he was the villain in this movie.
Yeah, I think this movie might have put him in pole position among the Chris's.
Yeah,
like that. It's such a silly like.
It's like almost, a made-up competition.
Yeah, like Hollywood reporter type thing. I don't know, like, Entertainment Tonight type thing. Like, who's your favorite Chris? But
I know, right?
It is actually kind of fun because they are 4 really good Chris's in Hollywood that,
I agree with you.
Everyone can have their own opinion of who their favorite Chris is. And
he just took a nice leap here.
Yeah.
Even to like, because I saw this on the IMAX screen as you did.
Yeah.
That big screen, and there's some definite, there's close-ups of his face, and I love how he had like the handlebar He has kind of the big beard, but there's like the handlebar part of his mustache. Like,
Yeah,
we joke like the mustache twirling villain. Well, he literally had the big mustache he could have twirled in this movie.
yeah,
Yeah, there wasn't a note or a beat about that character that didn't work.
right.
Unbelievable.
And of course, yeah, you always have to respect an actor who wants to disappear in the character,
Hmm.
even physically. Like, I could imagine there are people who are general movie fans who, if they didn't see the name Chris
It
Hemsworth
might
on the
take him a
screen,
minute, yeah,
could go, most of the movie and be like,
and
"Who
all of a
is
sudden, be
this
like, oh, that's
guy?"
Chris
That's
Hemsworth.
Chris Hemsworth under the
Yeah,
nose and
under
with
the
the
nose and
hair
the
and the
hair and the
and the
all the
talking.
attire and
Yeah,
yeah,
and yeah, I just love that
yep,
you can watch that and not one moment. I mean, obviously, I was thinking like, "Oh, Chris Hemsworth's great," but not one moment was I going like, "This is him being Chris Hemsworth." I was
no,
going like, "He is being this character,
yeah. I was like, this
Dementus."
is Dementus.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love it too when actors are not afraid to like it's like, okay, I'll be the bad. Like, let's say like Julia Roberts or someone who's just
mm,
this beloved actress has never been willing to be like, yeah, you know what? Forget it. I'm going to just be the bad guy.
mhm,
And I love when actors are just like, yeah, I'll shed the Thor image and yeah, let me be the bad guy. It's like at the beginning when they're killing Furiosa's mom and he is holding her eyes open. We're like, oh, this is just the most despicable thing to do to this poor girl, and he's just like, yep. I guess what I'm saying is like he just had no reservations.
right,
It wasn't like, okay, I'll be the bad guy, but I still want people to remember I'm Thor.
right,
You could tell he wasn't worried about that at all. He was just all in.
yeah. Um, they do. I do like. Um, Again, it's not like it's the smartest world building I've ever seen or anything like that because that's
But
not the focus of these
it
movies.
doesn't need to be, yeah.
But what I do like is things like Dementus. Like we could have a whole conversation of Dementus, good leader or bad leader.
Yeah.
Like so because there's things you look at and go like, okay, uh, when you meet him, you're like, of course this guy's the leader of this gang because they do a great job of like this post-apocalyptic world. I can't say those words. I gotta just stop trying.
It's all right.
In this
A
wasteland,
PA world.
in this wasteland, most of the guys are just like very kind of dim-witted.
Yeah.
They're just trying to survive. And then you meet Chris Hemsworth, and you're like, oh, this is a guy who's still got like some intelligence and some charisma to him.
Hmm.
So of course he's going to be a leader.
Yeah.
And even in the way like he does some things, like he's still so funny. The scene where he first or where he negotiates with the Morton Joe,
Yes.
and he just the way he even like makes little jokes or he talks about the girl and he's
Yeah.
like, "This is my daughter," and he gives the whole
And
backstory.
he's
He's
like,
like, "She
nah, that's
doesn't
not my
speak ever,"
daughter.
and then when she says no, he's like, "Fair, yep,
Yeah.
that's true.
She's not my daughter. Yeah.
I did torture and kill her mother. Yep."
So that was just a great character beat. I thought that like sometimes he plans stuff and it's really successful, and sometimes in the movie he gets completely outsmarted.
Yeah,
And like that's just really smart and what feels like really authentic writing, even
yeah,
in the confines of this post-apocalyptic action movie.
yeah,
And they don't have to like again going back to like the intelligence of the writing and stuff. It's like they don't have to like zoom in and like see like they're gonna double cross. Like you're just kind of left to see it unfold, and it's great.
yeah.
You know,
Because, like I said, it works out sometimes and it doesn't other
doesn't
times. You
work
got
out.
like
That's
him taking Gastown, and it's like a good strategy of
yeah.
sort of the Trojan horse, where we're going to take over
Yep.
the war machine vehicle and dress up like the war boys
Yeah.
and get in. But then like they also talk about how like he's losing control of his gangs and stuff, and it's like, well, is it because they're trying to say he's a bad leader, or is it just because this place is so wild and the resources are so limited? You just
Yeah.
can't keep control
Yeah.
in these
That's great. A great
circumstances. So
point.
like maybe he's a good leader, maybe he isn't.
Yeah.
You just it's impossible to say,
It
but
kind
there's
of
little evidences of both, so you can analyze and discuss if you
yeah.
want. But you also it's entirely unnecessary to do that. You can just sit back and enjoy the ride.
Exactly. Very well said.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was just I just like I said, he delivered exactly what I wanted from this character.
Yeah. I think we should probably talk about Anya Taylor-Joy since she is the actual lead of
She
the movie,
is.
and we have sung Chris Hemsworth praises to no end. I really like Anya Taylor-Joy. I think
Yes.
she's been really good in other things. So when I heard she was cast in this, I was like, I'm a little disappointed that it can't still be Charlize Theron. I
Hmm.
get why it's not because it's got to be the younger version.
Hmm.
So if it's going to be recast, like I'm pretty okay with this recasting.
Yeah.
And I thought she did a really good job.
I thought she was great.
Um, one surprise. Again, this is probably the longest we've ever gotten to a movie without doing our spoiler warning.
Yeah.
But just spoiler warning. Uh, and this isn't even much of a spoiler. Anya Taylor Joy is not in the movie till like an hour into the
I
movie.
couldn't believe it.
I know. I was like,
Like I was like, golly, like I can't believe she hasn't been in this movie yet.
I really like was thinking like, so this is definitely more of a Chris Hemsworth movie than an Anya Taylor Joy
Yeah.
movie because he's Dementus throughout the
He's
whole
all
thing.
through the first hour.
And
Yeah.
obviously there's stretches where he once it's Anya Taylor Joy, like he's a little more
Yeah, they kind of it's like they
supporting.
tag out almost. Like, all right,
Yeah.
I've done the first hour, now you come in for a while.
Exactly. But yeah, so that was the first big surprise
I
is
was
how long
real-
it took for her to. And I thought the little girl did a great job.
I thought she
who
was
playing
great. Yeah, I
Furiosa.
thought she was great.
And then Anya Taylor Joy. I'm gonna be honest. She does such a good job of playing like really young. I wasn't even entirely sure when the switch happened. When
Oh, I know.
Like it was like I was watching it. At
Well,
one point, I was
she's
like,
covered up.
I was
And you're
like,
like, okay, that's
that is-
Anya
yeah,
Taylor
that is
Joy.
her.
I
That
think.
is her eyes. Like I am convinced that's her now.
You're right. You could probably cast her tomorrow in a movie where she's 16 years old,
Yeah,
and they wouldn't have to do anything. Like she could just pull it off.
yeah.
Yeah.
So this is she was doing the Tom Hardy
She
school of
was.
acting thing because and it was the direction of George Miller. He said you're not gonna have a lot of dialogue,
Yep.
and I don't want you to show a lot of emotion because that's the character. The character has to keep the emotions inside because
Mhm.
you're this person
You're on
hiding in
this
plain
quest,
sight.
yeah.
And you're full of rage,
Rage
hate,
and
revenge, but you've got to just fit in. So she's got to do so much acting with her eyes,
Her
and that's
eyes.
where I go.
That's
like,
what I wanted
that
to
has
point
to
out.
be what it was that George Miller, because I heard that George Miller saw her in another movie Last Night in
Last Night in
Soho, and
Soho.
said that I want her for
That's what I
Furiosa.
want.
He had to see something in the eyes that goes, she's got to do a lot of acting with her eyes, and that girl has like very distinct
Expressive eyes.
Yes,
That's what I wanted. That was my number one note with her. It was like she conveyed so much so well with her eyes.
Mhm.
Yeah. And also, you've got to find someone who, like, and she does an amazing job of doing this. Like, she has to look cool while she's like surrounded in dust and has these goggles on that kind of make her eyes look big.
Yes,
But somehow you're not laughing at her. You're like, you know what? She kind of looks BA up there on
Yeah.
that big screen with these goggles on that make her eyes look like they're huge.
I
But
did laugh a little at that because it was just like she looks like a bug right now, but it didn't make it unbelievable. Like this
Like
character's goofy.
she pulled that off where I think if you cast someone different, it's almost a distraction.
Yeah,
I really think that.
yeah. She does like for someone who is slight.
Mm-hmm.
She has a toughness about
She does,
her.
and that is the movie and the character just do not work. If you're just sitting there going, "Well, this chick's like 120 pounds,"
yeah,
but for whatever reason, and I guess because all credit to her, like when she's kicking butt in this movie, you're like, "Yeah, okay, she
Mhm.
probably could pull that off." Like it's one of those performances that probably, in a lot of ways, won't get the credit that it deserves.
yes.
Yeah.
But going back to like why you believe her when she's doing awesome in the action sequence, one of the reasons is they don't lean a lot into like she's not beating people up with her physical strength.
That's true.
And which is smart. Like she's being clever,
Clever and
resourceful. She's
resourceful.
a good shot with her
Yeah.
gun. Like she's
That's a good
all
point.
the things that she would have to do. Like that makes you be like, yeah, of course she can
Yeah.
do all of those things.
You're right. She's
they
not
never
having a
stretch
fist
your
fight with
imagination.
Hemsworth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She's not out punching Hemsworth, which would be
But
silly.
it's like when she's on that giant semi thing, you're like, it's so believable.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was just
Yeah.
gonna say one quick thing about her. She might be like she is an actress who I really like her, but she is in some movies I don't like. Like
yeah.
you and I have talked before, like The Witch, just
Yeah.
a big dud from us, but she's good in it.
Yeah.
So I was so glad to see her get a role that, A, she was good, and B, the movie was good. Like she finally combined the two. Even like last night in
Soho.
Soho, I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
but I've always like, it's always like she's good,
Yeah.
but her movies just haven't hit it out of the park for me yet.
She's definitely one that she likes to do interesting roles in
She
movies.
does.
And when you're that type of actor, like she really hasn't done any
Big mainstream.
Like, this is about as mainstream as she
yeah.
gets, is doing a franchise that's sort of mainstream, but is definitely a weird franchise.
Right.
So when you do a career like that, you're gonna have a lot of like weird ones
Yeah.
and a lot of good ones. I really liked her in The Menu, which
Yes,
was
she is
2 years
really good in The
ago.
Menu.
That was a movie I just enjoyed.
That was
and I
a
thought
really
she was
good
really good in
movie.
it. But
She
again,
is good in that.
she's
You're
just
right.
always going to be in weird movies. I don't see her ever
just
doing like
going.
I don't see her doing a rom com, for example. I
Yeah,
just don't think that would interest her. She
probably
likes to
not.
do very eccentric
She does. So
movies.
this was a great marriage though of not a traditional movie like you said, but something that could showcase her talents in a more enjoyable movie than The Witch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I do have a little section here, just a couple nitpicks because that's what we do here.
Sure.
Um, my first one is a nitpick, but it's actually like something I kind of like about it because again, going to what I think prequels should be, I think the ending is a little unsatisfying,
Mhm.
but I think it makes Fury Road necessary,
Yeah.
and that's one thing I really like about it is it feels like, well, you can't just like, yeah, I need more to the story. Oh, well, there is because there's
There
Fury
is.
Road. I think Fury Road has a perfectly satisfying conclusion.
Yes.
And it so like the fact that this one isn't very satisfying is okay because I almost went home from this movie as late as I got home and almost immediately wanted to start watching
Fury
Fury
Road.
Road to be like, and now I need the rest. I got the revenge. Now I need the escape
Yep.
and the satisfaction. So I think that might be a little where my friends were coming from after the movie because they were just thinking in terms of just this movie. They were like, I was left a little unsatisfied at the end.
Well, our brains are just trained to expect a giant. You almost expect like that semi section of the movie when you first do see Anya Taylor
Yeah.
Joy. You almost expect that to be the climax,
Right.
and you don't get that. And so such a choice, like the way she catches Hemsworth, like he literally just wakes up
Hmm.
and he's like, "Oh, you found me." Like
Yeah.
it was a choice for sure.
Yeah, I mean it definitely gets a little more like philosophical than you would think for a movie
Definitely.
that's very action oriented because his whole thing is like you're not going to be able to get satisfaction out of this, whatever you kind of dreamed up as
Like
the ideal
I'll be,
moment.
yeah. He's like, "I'll be dead. You'll
Yeah.
still be alive and stewing over all this."
Right.
Yeah.
And not even in like a so haha way. He's basically like,
He's just
hey, this is the life I'm living. I've been there. I get it. Like
yeah.
good luck with the rest of your life.
And I love how he told her, he's like, "Look, you can beat me if you want. I have a crazy high pain tolerance. So
Yeah.
if that's what you want to do, that's fine." But yeah, so I liked it.
Yeah.
I liked it. It almost in a weird way reminded me of like Kill Bill Volume 2,
Mm.
where it doesn't really end with a giant fight between the bride and Bill. It
Right.
ends like more like philosophical and conversation and like regret and was this chase of you worth it and how like it
Yeah.
took that route more so than anything. And so I wanted to ask you, like, do you think so? It's like we're led to believe like we don't actually know how she killed him, right?
Right. Because
Because
it
it's all
sort of
like
lays out
the
the different
story.
scenarios.
One
Yeah.
story is that she simply shot him. One story is that she planted that tree and it,
Yeah.
it was like, but none of them were presented as this is actually what happened.
Right.
So it was definitely a choice. But I think you're right. I think it's. And I'm certainly not going to try and get in George Miller's mind, but it's almost like you can feel him be like, well, your big chase is coming in Fury Road.
Mhm.
So you don't need it here. Otherwise, this again just becomes Fury Road 2.0.
Right.
So it may not have been, to the average moviegoer, may not have been the satisfactory conclusion you wanted, but it felt real to the story that was being told.
Yeah.
Also, another chance for Hemsworth to just shine. I love when he's like, "Do you have it in you to make it epic?"
Yeah.
I was like, I mean, I just wanted to start clapping. It was
Yeah.
like, dude, you just killed this, and now you're going down. You're going out in a blaze of glory.
Yeah. I'm already just a little pre-angry at him not getting an Oscar nomination for this because I know
It's not
it's
going to
not
happen.
gonna happen, and
But
I'm gonna
come
be like,
on,
I'm gonna look back and be like, that was definitely one of the 5 best performances, especially if you wanted to like sneak it into supporting, which plenty of movies do.
tons of movies do,
Yeah.
especially when inevitably the Oscar nominations come out, and some old guy from the most boring movie of the year gets a supporting actor nomination, which
Yeah.
happens almost every year.
Yeah.
And then something like this, where he is just stealing every scene he's in, will go unnoticed.
Well, yeah, and it's like a career again, not career making because he's had this long career.
But
It's like a career redefining
there you
almost
go.
performance.
There you go. But yeah, the ending, I liked it. I appreciated it. But, I fully expect, and I'm not going to be shocked at people who are like, whoa, that was kind of weird. It just kind of ended. Even like literally, like the very last shot of the movie, it's just kind of like Hemsworth's dead. All right, come on, let's load up in this semi. They get in the semi, boom, directed by George Miller.
Yeah.
Like, just that's it. I almost wonder if one of these days George Miller's gonna try and do like the Furiosa cut, where just one like 4.5 hour long movie.
Oh, that'd be fun.
I'd go see it. I can tell
Yeah,
you
I
that
would.
right now.
I would too. My next nitpick. I wrote the Mad Max stand-in, which was the guy that
Yeah.
was the driver before. I was like, he's kind of Mac. Like, I don't really have a problem with him, but if any character was kind of like underdeveloped to me, or like nothing really particularly interesting about them to
He
me, it's that guy.
Yeah, and not that you need someone else besides Hemsworth trying to just ooze charisma all over the screen, but he was almost like trying to do the opposite, where he was like so stoic that
Mhm.
it was kind of yeah. That's fair.
Yeah,
I don't argue with that.
yeah, and it's again probably not fair to that guy. Again, you don't want him to be Max in the
Right.
Mac. You don't want him to be that like interesting, but like if you compare what Tom Hardy was doing,
Mm-hmm.
basically again doing kind of the same thing
Mm-hmm.
versus what this guy's doing, like Tom
There's a
Hardy was
difference.
so much more watchable and interesting and
There's
like
a difference.
fascinating
Like
versus this
you
guy.
want to tell this guy, dude, you can make your face move every once in a while. Like
Yeah.
very, like it didn't bother me very much when you first kind of meet him when he's driving the semi because it's like this dude is just focused and on a mission. But as the movie developed, you're kind of like, yeah, you kind of wanted maybe just a little bit
Yeah.
more from that guy.
They really like it's it was shocking how quickly they moved on from him in the like they're doing the thing where they're dragging him around to kill him, and then it's like just passes time and they never show him again. They're not even like, okay, he's dead now or anything.
Yeah.
They just never show him again. Nobody mentions him again.
No, and
He's
you don't
just
even
out
get
of the
like the Anya
story.
Taylor Joy, like shedding the tear for him or
Right.
nothing. He's just gone.
Yeah.
Forward moving story for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fair critique.
Um these next two are very small nitpicks, but I say very small. My least favorite part of the movie, and this is in a scene I really enjoyed, was that negotiation scene between Chris Hemsworth and Morton Joe, where he has the contraption rip his nipples off, and the whole time that his
What
nipples are bleeding, I'm just like, can this scene just end? Because I just cannot stop looking, and I don't want to look at his bleeding
it
nipples.
pulls up on the IMAX screen? Yeah, it definitely seemed
Like
unnecessary.
everyone kind of looking like, why did he rig it up so that when it went off, it
Like,
ripped
couldn't
his?
you just have not done that? Like, that was strange.
And I think it was probably again they do a lot of little weird details in
They
this in these
do,
movies.
which does make the
Eh,
world feel, I
yes,
guess, more authentic.
and I think probably the message is supposed to be like, look, I'm a little unhinged,
I
so
get,
like you don't mess with me because I'm willing to like.
but we could have shown that in a ton of other ways.
And I guess it goes back to his high pain tolerance thing because he just kind of carries on after his nipples are ripped off, and I'm like, I would have been on the ground inconsolable for weeks after
I
something like that
almost
happened to
was
me.
just from watching it.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
I never need to see that happen to someone in a movie ever again.
It's, I mean, like talk about like it's played for a laugh, I guess.
I guess, but it's in kind of like a, like you said, it's like
Right.
this intense negotiation,
But
and
yeah, it's
it
like
was
his
wild.
react. It's almost like Steve Carell getting his chest waxed and ripped off in 40-Year-Old Virgin. It's
Yeah,
like it happens, and he's just the way he reacts, like oh, that hurt, and then he kind of just continues on. And you're like, why'd you just do that to yourself?
yeah.
Why would you didn't
Why
see
did
that coming?
Why did you do
Didn't.
that? Yeah,
So
yeah. That was a strange moment in a movie full of strange things happening, but that
yes,
one really stood out.
yeah.
It did.
Um, this next nitpick I will admit is my most shallow of nitpicks. Anya Taylor Joy, I just don't think looks quite as good with the shaved head as Charlize Theron did.
Yeah.
There's something about her hair, like it's too thick or something. It just looked a
It,
little weirder than.
there was a one particular shot towards the end where her hair looked very strange.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I also wondered, like, I don't know if she actually was allowed to shave her
she
head
did not.
because I knew she
I
wanted
looked
to,
this up.
and
She did not shave
because
her
of
head.
modeling contracts, she
Yes.
has to keep her hair long. And I was like, that's kind of what it looks like. Is it doesn't look as
Yep,
like
she did not shave her
real,
head.
and so I know she wanted to. So shout out to her because it wasn't a lack of her willingness.
Right.
I do think she looks great when her hair's long and she's got the black across her forehead. Like,
She looked really cool.
She looked like an awesome warrior.
She did.
I just didn't think she looked as cool with a shade. Like Charlize Theron, there's something about when she showed up in Fury Road with that shaved head where you're like, oh, she's she's
Mhm.
tough. She's bad.
Yeah.
And Anya Taylor Joy's shaved head just didn't quite translate the same way.
Fair enough.
Shallow nitpick, but
It's all right.
that's something. And then the last thing is the thing that I always wonder is first off, the story takes place in Australia.
Yes.
which I don't even know if that was ever made clear in Fury Road. I guess it was made a little more clear in this one
I
that
think,
it's taking place in Australia.
yeah,
It's just sort of like a wasteland, is about all they say in Fury
yeah.
Road. But the days of driving, it made me wonder, like, how big is Australia? I wasn't even sure. I looked it up. It is actually, it's very close in square mileage to the continental United States.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, like that makes me feel a little better because
Yeah.
that's pretty big. And I'm sitting there because what I'm wondering at first is like this place of abundance, like how hard can it be to find when people are driving for like days and like it just seems like a real Israelites wandering in the wilderness for 40 years, and then you find out how big a space it was, and you're like, how are they how are they lost for that long?
Right.
But I guess it is a pretty big space.
Hmm.
I guess if you're driving through a lot of like sand, you're probably not going very fast. So it probably is several days journeys on these
Right.
things. You can start nitpicking the math of like how much gas do they have on them? Can they really drive that long on the amount of gas they have and that sort of thing? So there's little things like that that again aren't really taken
They're
away from
not
my enjoyment of
detrimental
the
to the
movie.
movie.
I just can't help but I'm kind of like trying to do the math in my head. Like, does that work? Can they do that? Like, how much can they do that? So,
That was one thing that was just, again, we're talking nitpicks here.
mhm.
One thing that was just, yeah, a little distracting to me was it was like, if you watch the beginning when she's kidnapped, you kind of like, to me, the way the movie presented it, you get the sense of like this wasn't like they weren't driving for a year to get her from the land
Right.
of abundance to where they went. It's like, and her plan to get home takes years, and it's like it feels like it's just a couple of days of travel.
Yeah.
So that wasn't quite made clear, but it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like some of those thoughts went through my head too. And it's like, well, we're in this world of limited resources and gas really doesn't seem to be too big of an issue for them. And I mean, little things like that crossed my mind. But then, that semi scene happened and I just forgot all that
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Instantly forgiven.
Yeah.
Furiosa. Uh, this movie really doesn't happen if she's just good at running when people tell her to run.
Yeah,
Like
that's true.
the beginning, the mom sends her away, but she
Like-
doesn't. She doesn't run like she doesn't follow the mom's instructions. She runs back to the mom.
She does
and
it
is
2 or
immediately
3 times in the
recaptured.
movie.
Yeah. Then there's at the bullet farm where she's
Yeah.
outside of the gate, and the guy's like, you can tell he's like, I'm going to sacrifice myself and occupy the bad guys. You just get away
out of here.
And
She
she
goes
doesn't.
back.
She comes back.
Yeah.
It's like Furiosa. If you would just go when
Just
people are
go.
trying to let you go,
Go. Yeah.
but also it all sort of works out. So in the end, like when she goes back to the bullet farm, I'm like, well, here she just ruined her chance to get away. They actually get out of that situation. It just Chris Hemsworth then comes out with a monster
Oh
truck
my gosh.
and catches up to him, and it's like, oh, they were so close to it working out, and then
Yeah.
it didn't. So
Yeah. Just
Yeah.
little things like that. But again, certainly not to the point where it was like, man, that really took me out of the movie.
Here's a question for you that I asked my friends. I was like, I wasn't sure how to interpret this. So we do get kind of a little bit of a Mad Max cameo,
We
right?
do.
Like we get him up on that hill, seeing her walking when she's
Yep.
whether her arm severed on its own from hanging half broken off or she pulled it off. Like
Reminder,
again,
I want to come back.
It
to
doesn't
that,
say,
man.
but she's in the desert and she passes out, and the next thing we know, she's in that cave with the maggots lady,
Ah,
which
that
was
was
super
gross.
gross. I'm like, are we supposed to believe that he just saw her, or did he drag her to safety and then disappeared? And I wondered about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think my initial thought, I looked at it like he did it,
Yeah.
but I don't know.
And I would, if I had to guess, my guess is that George Miller likes it being open ended like that.
I think so. I
'cause-
think so. I don't
'cause-
think he's interested in everything having like
Right.
a perfectly wrapped up, perfect bow on the package. I
Yeah.
don't think he's interested in
Because
that.
Max, all through the Bad Max movies, really chose that line between hero and
He does.
and not. I mean, he's like a guy who doesn't want to be a hero. He's always like, I'm not interested in your cause. Like,
Yeah.
He just always kind of gets wrapped up in it. But I think he likes the fact that if you want Max to be a hero, there's enough evidence there for you to say he's a
Yes.
hero.
And
And
that's
if you want him not to be, there's enough evidence that he isn't. So when he shows you that scene, Max sees her. If you want him to be the hero, you can assume he took her to safety.
Right.
If you want him not to be, you can say he just saw her and let her be.
Also, kudos to George Miller too, and everyone involved for being, like I said, for not catering to the audience, and it's like they weren't like, look, it's Max.
Yeah.
Like it just, what do you see, like his back basically?
Yeah, and it's really like the car that makes you go like, yes, that's Max.
But they don't like focus in on it and the big music. It's just like you could even miss it, and then like 10 minutes later it'd be like, oh, that was Max.
Mhm.
So like I like it when they do that, and you don't feel like you're, it's like when we talk to little kids and you use the little
Yeah.
kid voice. Like I don't like it when movies treat me like I'm the little kid.
Yeah, I thought there would be in that moment when he sees her out there. I was like,
Mhm.
there will be that moment where it's her, close up on her like being dragged across the ground, and she'll like slowly open her eyes, look up, and
Blurry.
see him for a second, and
Yep.
then go out, and that will be like the real cam. No,
Nope.
it just jumps from he sees her fall
To
to she's in a
bloody
cave
stump of
with yeah.
maggots. Yeah.
All right, let's go back to that scene
Okay.
where she loses the arm.
that that was incredible. And
Mhm.
I was literally sitting there thinking, I really hope he goes back to get her and her arms just dangling there. And then that's exactly what happened. And that I don't know why that was just so satisfying to me. Because
Yeah,
it was like that, it's like it's finding humor obviously in like a really dark situation. Like this woman, or either her arm just felt like the weight just fell and her arm was still dangling, or she voluntarily ripped her own arm off. But yet you get a chuckle out of it in the most twisted of ways.
yeah, and that goes back to my thing of like this movie's so vibrant and colorful, and then you have those moments like that that are like, oh, there's an arm just
Yeah,
hanging off of this. That's our protagonist, our hero's arm
arm.
is hanging
And
off.
yet I almost was compelled to chuckle a
Yeah,
little bit.
I did think there was a couple times throughout the movie. I think they were having a little fun with everyone knowing she's going to lose her arm at some
Yeah.
point in this movie. And there's a couple moments where you think, oh, this has to
Here it
be what happens,
comes.
and it's like,
Oh,
nope,
nope.
her arm's not off. And
Yep.
then
I'll tell you what though, they did a
yeah,
good job. Like I, I wasn't distracted by that the whole time. Like, ooh,
right,
I wonder when she's going to lose her arm. And then when it finally kind of
yeah,
got stuck between her vehicle and the other vehicle,
yeah,
that's when it was like, oh, there it is. There it
yeah.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Because it's yeah, you don't spend the whole time doing that. It's just in the moments where like,
Yeah.
oh, this crashes, and you're like, oh, is this no? Okay, and then
Yep.
you forget about it.
Or like the one dude's had like basically just the giant fans on their back with the huge blades. And I was like,
Mm.
okay, probably that's how she's going to lose her. Nope. And then it happened. And like I said, they almost managed in the most twisted way to get a laugh out of it, I think. It got a
Yeah,
laugh in my theater. Kind of
yeah,
like a laugh followed by like a, oh, man.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If we were again nitpicking the logic, like she probably dies in that desert of blood loss,
She
but
handled that really well.
yeah,
Losing an arm,
she
she took that really well.
survived really well. Uh, I do think we need to probably talk just a little more about that. I think it's like a 15-minute long sequence
We've
of that
got
first
to.
because we've referenced it, but
My goodness
there
gracious.
was so much great action in that. And one of the things I love is again talking about how to do prequels right because it's 9 years between when they made Fury Road and when they made Furiosa, and obviously
Mhm.
like filmmakers are just constantly getting better at stuff. And they
Right.
behind the scenes I read about how he's learning things, getting better, and the ability to do things is
Oh my
is grown.
gosh.
It does it in a way where like this is cool new stuff, but it doesn't do it in a way that makes you go, well, then how come the action's lamer in Fury
Fury
Road? Like
Road.
it fits perfectly alongside of it,
It
but they
does.
do some different things. So like you're saying, those parachutes
Oh my
and the people
gosh.
going up in the air, it's like, oh, this is different, but
But it's still,
it fits right in.
yep, absolutely. That, I mean, again, I probably should have thought about this more. That surely got to be, I won't say top, I won't say Mount Rushmore yet, but you got to think that's got to be top 10 just right off the bat of just one of the all time great just action moments of a movie. I mean, that was unbelievable.
Yes.
That was unbelievable.
They throw in so many great little details too. Like
Yes.
there's constantly like little things happening when they go wide shots
Yeah.
or like little crashes or this person falling off of here that you're like, that had to be difficult to do. And it's such a small thing that probably not even everybody will catch.
I know.
But they throw it in to just make it feel really full and complete.
Oh my gosh, that was it's such a cliche to be like edge of your seat, and Furiosa doesn't die, but still like it's that combination of like you're on the edge of your seat because it's so thrilling, and you're also just in awe of like how do they do this?
Yes.
How do they do this and make it make any sense and be cohesive? And it's just I if I had the ability, obviously I would have just rewound that scene right there in the iMac. Like, hey, play that back. Yell up to the projector guy. Just jump backwards like 10 minutes and let's watch that scene again. That was such a delight to watch that. And that semi, like George Miller, like clearly like this dude is intelligent and all this. But like you said, like he knows how to make people look really cool. He just knows how to make things look really cool.
Yes.
It's like, let's get this giant killer semi with like a bulldozer. I don't want to say handle's not the right word.
Crane
Like the
thing,
crane
yeah.
part of the bulldozer on the side and
Well, then
dynamite and guns and parachutes.
the back of it that spins with the
Oh
wrecking
my
ball, like whatever.
gosh.
That is,
That was insane.
yeah,
And just the funny details too. Like at one point they threw like maybe like a smoke bomb or something. I don't remember if it's Furiosa or the other guy. They just grab it and just throw it right back out. And you're like, yeah,
yeah,
that's what you should do. And
yeah,
that kind of stuff was great. And that scene was unbelievable.
yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I love it so much.
It was just incredible. It was so good. It was thrilling. So many people in this movie get caught on fire.
Yeah,
Tons of people in this movie are just on fire.
yeah. A lot of people run over.
A lot of people
That's
run
some of
over.
those shots of like cars getting crushed under the semi is like, I again, I don't expect it because I'm just like, well, that they can't do that. How? And then the way it happens, the way it's filmed, it's just like, oh my gosh, they did that.
And at one point, so you got that giant semi. I think it like hits a car. That car flips up on top of the semi, right? It was it a car? Something I don't
Yeah.
remember because there's a lot. In my defense, there's a lot going on.
Yes.
But I was like, good grief! Like that was one of those like, how did they film this moments? That scene was incredible. And like I said, you almost expect like either that closes out the movie, or I will admit, like I did have the thought, like, do they have an even bigger chase scene planned for the end of this movie? And then it turns out they didn't. But wow, unbelievable, and definitely a I don't know if risk is the right word, but to put that just in the middle of the movie, that's an
Yeah.
interesting choice.
Yeah.
Because like that was so epic. That clearly could have been the end of them. Like that could have closed the movie, and everyone would have been like, "Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome."
But the amount of action in this movie, even for the climax not to be really action based,
Still,
it's one of those movies that like you watch the preview and you're like, I don't want to watch because I don't want to show me all the great action moments.
it
Like they
doesn't.
couldn't. You couldn't possibly
You
show
could.
all the
That'd be
great
a
action
30-minute
moments.
long preview.
Yes, exactly.
I thought it was so impressive. I guess that, I'm assuming this was a combination of like CGI with real,
Yeah.
but like that scene at the end, for example, where it's very much desert, very very much desert. Those cars racing up those hills and stuff that looked so good,
Yeah.
and I thought that was so satisfying. It wasn't like whatever CGI there was, it did not jump out at you in a bad way.
No.
That looked great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've said it a couple times about the vibrant look and the colorfulness of the movie. The like desert landscape, bright blue sky, and when they shoot up flares of like red and green, like it's literally just looks like a piece of art.
It does. Also, incredible choice to have Hemsworth have like that red
Yes,
in
it
his
just,
hair, and like I was actually bummed when you do get the time jump
yeah,
and it's Anya Taylor-Joy that he didn't still have. I wanted him to still have the red.
yeah. And didn't they like even? Didn't he just embrace it and they called him like Dementus the Red or something like
Yeah,
that after
I
it
think he
happened?
said that,
Yeah.
didn't he? He was like, "Now I am Dementus the Red," something
Yeah.
like that, and it was like awesome. Just coming from the most simple of things, like just a
Yeah.
red flare. And I love like it showed like the red dust like all over his goggles. Like
Mhm.
the goggles were just great in this movie. For some reason, those
Yes.
really jumped out to me.
Yeah.
Maybe do we need to start wearing goggles when we podcast?
It couldn't hurt.
We
should
could
give it a
try. We
I
could
really
try.
thought about coming into this podcast with just the black face paint smeared across my forehead.
I was gonna dress like a Morton Joe, but I just didn't have time to.
Which is something else we should shout out is that the actor who played Immortan Joe in Fury Road passed away.
Yeah.
And they had to recast it in this one. And I had forgotten that happened. And I didn't even realize that it was somebody else. Of course, he's got a lot of makeup and like
But
mask and
still,
stuff.
like a
But
great job.
yeah, great
Yeah,
job by that
great
guy
job.
to just make me not even realize it was a different person
Yeah.
being Immortan Joe.
And I want to say real quick, and you touched on it, like the Morton Joe stuff. I thought they handled that so not the passing of the actor, but just like how, because I remember seeing him in one of the previews, Morton Joe, and it was
Yeah.
like, well, do I need a bunch of him because he's more front and center in Fury Road? But like you had talked about, like he was handled really well in this movie, where he's
Yes.
there and he's got the whole vibe of like the evil ruler and stuff, but they didn't have to dwell on it too much. I thought that was all done really well.
Yeah.
And then, for a while there, he's, of course, he doesn't show up for a little bit into the movie. And then you get him, and then he's gone for a while.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a nice balance, I thought, with that
It
character.
was a great moment when Chris Hemsworth and his old biker gang first shows up to him, and he's really confident. He's like doing his typical like, you
And then
guys
here
should just
comes a Morton
surrender.
Joe.
And as an audience member, you're like, you're doing
You're
this to the
messing
wrong
with the-
guy. He's got a whole army of fanatics and when he demonstrates it by just having one guy sacrifice himself, and he's like, they're all ready to do that. get him,
Yeah,
and then
that
they
was
just
awesome.
go.
Yeah.
You're like, and you just see it on Hemsworth's face, and was like, oh crap, like
Uh-oh,
I
I
did.
picked the wrong
Yeah,
fight. Yeah.
exactly.
That was great.
That was really good. Um, well, any other closing thoughts you want to make before?
Trying to think if anything jumped out. I wanted to mention. I was going to mention the red and stuff
Yeah.
like that with Hemsworth. No, just a movie that definitely met my expectations, and um, it's always nice when a movie can meet your expectations, but also throw a few twists in there, and
Mhm.
not like like last week we spent a long time talking about like Shyamalan level twist,
Right.
not those kind of twists, but just not seeing Anya Taylor Joy for the first hour of the movie.
Yeah.
Didn't expect that at all. Again, I want to just hit the ending of the movie, which, like you said, does not end in this giant,
Mhm.
war. It ends in this quiet moment. Well, not quiet, but this moment, just Anya Taylor Joy and Hemsworth in the desert. Like, definitely some decisions were made, and to me, they worked.
Yeah.
So the movie met my expectations, but also managed to throw a couple curveballs in there, and that's great.
Yeah. I'm definitely would recommend people see this movie in theater on the biggest screen
Oh,
possible.
yeah.
It's not one of those ones. It's not one of the Avatar movies where I go, if you don't see it in theater, don't
It's just not,
bother. I still can watch Fury Road at home and enjoy it just fine.
absolutely. This
But
needs to be
but
seen.
it's a theatrical, like big screen,
Oh yeah,
surround sound, all the
definitely.
speakers, to enjoy this one as much as it should be
For sure.
enjoyed.
I also just want to point out super quickly, I always like it when movies have chapters.
Yeah.
I don't know, I just like that gimmick, and I thought I was very pleased when right off the bat you see that this movie's going to have chapters. I just thought that
Yeah.
was cool.
Um, I want to have one not really related to the movie complaint. This happened to me going to see it, like I said, with three friends. I ordered the tickets over a week in advance.
Hmm.
No tickets had been bought in the theater yet, so I got the three seats I want. Like I have a sort of this is my seat
Oh yeah,
in that theater. Got the two seats beside it, so like we're right there. We're all center, and because I don't want to see a lot of previews. We went to eat beforehand, and I kept telling my friends, "Don't worry, the movie doesn't start at 7. The movie starts at like 7:25.
oh yeah,
So we got plenty of time. So we get into the theater. We're walking in, and it's about like 7:15. And I'm even saying to my friends, like, this is still a good
we're
five
still
10 minutes
fine.
before I would walk in,
Yeah,
because I just don't want to watch previews anymore. And we walk in and walk up there, and it's kind of dark already. So I even have to pull out my flashlight to see the letters on the make sure we go on the right row, even though I'm pretty sure I know what it is. Yeah, this is the right row. Go down to my seat, and as I get to my seat, there is a drink and a popcorn and like another thing in the seat that's supposed to be my seat.
hmm,
And I'm looking around like, what the heck is this? So my friends just like they just stop and they like sit down before it, and they're like, like somebody else must be there. They don't even know what our seats are. I'm like, these are our seats, and they're kind of like, oh well, we don't care. We're just gonna sit down here, a couple seats down. So I join them in this. I move it still one over, so I'm like next to one of the seats, and the guy comes in and just sits down, and he's like chomping on popcorn, and like for the first like 10 minutes we're in there, I was like just seeing red with rage.
yeah,
I was like, guy, I bought my tickets over a week ago. That's my seat.
yeah.
What are you doing in my spot? Like, and I told my friends afterwards, I said, my problem is I don't know how to be confrontational to the right degree. I
Hmm.
either say nothing or
Or way too much.
like, what is your problem? You terrible human being.
Yeah,
Get out of here.
right.
Like, so
So
I didn't say anything. I was like, I can't let it ruin my experience of this movie. Once the movie got going, I
you
didn't think
forgot
about it.
about it.
But like, I was just like, what is happening? Why is this guy in my seat?
I will say, as a frequent movie goer like we are, I'm amazed at how hard of a time people seem to have finding their seats.
Yeah.
Like, people, these couldn't more clearly be labeled. Like, I go to the IMAX in Savoy, and it's like, as you're walking up the side, A, B, C, D, E, and then as you go down, 1, 2, 3, like, it's right there. So look, we're not trying to pick on anybody, but just a public service announcement, it's not hard to figure out. Like,
No.
I can think of several movies this year where I'm already seated and people come in and they're just roaming around that theater like their seat could be anywhere. And I'm like, people, there's a clear system here.
Yeah.
So just look, I understand not everyone goes to the movies as much as we do, especially as much as you do. It's not, you don't have to be like Russell Crowe in A Beautiful Mind or Goodwill Hunting to crack these codes of how to find the seat.
Right. Have you ever played Battleship before? It's that.
Not over. Yeah. It's just Battleship, but in the movie theater. It's not
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah. So, as I was sitting there, like, do I say something to this guy? I'm like, well, I'm either going to be talking to an idiot who couldn't figure out where his seat is, or a jerk who didn't care.
Yeah.
And I don't really want to talk
You
to
don't
an
want
idiot
to
or
do
a
either
jerk,
one of those things. Yeah.
So,
So let's always remember to practice movie theater etiquette.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um, so just wanted to get that off my chest
I'm
with
glad you
that.
did.
Yeah,
It's as much as we go, we can help educate others on how to behave at the movies.
absolutely. Um, so next week, well, let me just say this. We're in summer now.
We
Summer
are.
break. I'm a teacher, so summer is my time off. I'm going to be spending a lot of time away
Yep.
from Andy, which makes me sad,
Ah,
but my family lives out of state in Tennessee. I'm going to go spend some time
yep.
with them. We do plan to keep the pod going.
Yeah. It'll
Be a
just be a
little
little
different. It
different.
won't be in studio or as what you guys see as in studio.
Yeah.
In this room with green screens is where we really are.
Yeah.
So we're gonna work it out to do it remotely.
Yeah.
So it might look a little different, but it's still gonna be the same old,
Yeah.
wonderful Jeremy and Andy Talk Movies podcast.
You and I being apart is going to be like Furiosa wanting to return home.
Yes,
We're going
exactly.
to have maps to each other drawn on
Yes.
our arms,
I
and
need to get back to this place of abundance.
of the place of abundance where we can talk about movies for hours at a time.
Yeah. But next week will be a remote episode, I believe. And it's going to be, I think, a special episode because we're going to have a guest. One of our friends, Woody, I believe, will be joining us for sort of a Memorial Day themed. I know it's a little late after Memorial Day, but stuff.
We wanted to hit Furiosa
Yes,
this weekend now.
But we're going to talk war movie,
Yeah.
Mount Rushmores.
Yeah.
So we're each going to reveal our Mount Rushmores. It's actually not going to be a secret among us. We went ahead and shared so that we could make sure we were prepped and ready to talk about these movies. But that's an exciting thing to talk about. I will say I was making our sort of schedule or slate for the month of June. It's a little sad coming off of this month. This month, like
This month was a high, though.
A lot of movies that we were excited about. And I was like,
I know.
okay, what specific movies would we want to hit? And I was like, honestly, we could go the whole month without a movie that like specifically I'm like, we got to do that one.
I know, right? Like,
We'll probably will do a couple.
yeah.
But
I mean, I know I'll end up seeing Quiet Place day one. I might as
Yeah.
well. I've seen the preview 8 billion times.
yeah,
But yeah, June is a little bit of a
little
letdown.
thin.
A little thin. Honestly, and I don't want to end this negatively, but the summer now is a little thin.
Yeah.
And like, you and I have talked about like Despicable Me 4, Inside Out 2. I don't care.
Yeah, I'm not going to be seeing those.
I'm not going to be seeing those. So yeah. But,
Yeah.
maybe that'll force us to see something maybe we normally wouldn't have. Like, we
Right.
knew we were going to talk about Furiosa.
Right.
We've known that for months. So, I mean, maybe something will sneak in and we can find something else to talk about, something new to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what? Audience who has been just not the best at giving us feedback. That's okay. We've actually gotten some feedback, and that's cool.
I've
We
been
always
getting
really
more.
appreciate it.
So I'll say this real quick. I talked to 3 people yesterday who were like, I like listening to your podcast.
That's incredible.
3 people. Shout out to my friends Cash and Cruz.
All right.
I'm gonna just give them a shout out. They are
well deserved shout
they
out.
are high school students. They are friends with my boys, and they are They're like us if we were younger. They're
Nice.
brothers. They love movies, and I see them a lot now because they're friends with my boys, and we talk about movies. And guys, you made me happy by talking about the podcast. So
Yeah.
shout out to them.
But yeah, so as you say, if people would like to give us feedback, feel free to throw out ideas for episodes you'd like to see us do.
Definitely.
If there's a certain topic you'd like us to tackle, or do
Unless it's Despicable
a
Me
draft
4.
or a Mount
We're not gonna go
Rushmore.
see that.
No, yeah,
No.
don't ask us to do that.
Don't ask us to. No, yeah, we'll do whatever. Like, as long as we're talking about movies, we're pretty happy. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we hope that you guys are equally happy listening to us talk about
hope so.
movies.
go see Furiosa.
Go see Furiosa.
Do it.
And join us next week.
Absolutely.